document for discussion purposes that I think is up on the screen right now. And I want to thank Bridget Harvey and Kim Doyle for taking raw data and researching raw data and helping put this together. But essentially, I don't know how much the town board members have gotten a chance to review this, but I thought it was a good discussion piece to have at a workshop for several reasons. One, Josh Artuso, back in mid to late 2022, we went to the planning board and the zoning board within our quarterly liaison meetings. Liaison to those boards. And Josh did one of his wonderful presentations about a possibility of going from 2 planning board meetings a month and 2 zoning board meetings a month to 1 a month for each zoning and planning. And he did a very nice presentation that showed comparable other towns in Monroe County of our size and how many of these planning board meetings they were having monthly and zoning boards. He also tied that into the fact that we were doing some code changes that were going to take potentially up to 50% of the zoning board's cases that they heard, setbacks for fences and fence heights and on property lines and all that. And it would reduce a lot of the things that they'd be hearing. Long story short, after some discussions, back and forth, pros, cons, the planning board, zoning board, we were both in agreement that let's go to 1 a month. And we rolled that out in January of 2023, and we are now 16 months into that. And Josh, I'd like to think that you would agree that it's gone very well.
It has.
And interestingly enough, we always reserve the right to have a special planning board or zoning board meeting in the month. And in fact, this month, we are having a special planning board meeting on May 21st because of a situation that happened Tuesday night, May 7th, that necessitated that, hey, you know what, we're not going to wait a month, we'll have a special meeting. But I would imagine that in the first 16 months, that the number of special planning board meetings, a second one during the month, or a special zoning board meeting, a second one during the month, has been minimal, if non-existent.
Yeah, I would say
There's
very
one.
minimal.
I think there was one. Maybe?
Yeah, there have definitely been a couple when the necessity arises, but by and large, we've been able to manage the caseload with 1 meeting per month.
Yeah. So it got me thinking, especially as our new video and our Mevo cameras, and you know, once we get this all perfected, which we're pretty darn close, aren't we, Dan and Bridget? But now we're going to move to who do we have come in here to run these for the planning board meeting each month, for the zoning board meeting, and for the 4 town board meetings a month. 2 town board meetings, first and third Thursday of the month, and second and fourth Thursday of the month being workshops. Tonight being the second Thursday of the month. And I also got thinking about how there has been some legitimate criticism that citizens don't like workshops because it doesn't give them a chance to get on the podium like a regular board meeting does. And so I guess I was thinking about a lot of this stuff and even more, and I'll save that for discussion or whatever. And I thought, well, think tank-wise, what would the board think about maybe going into 2025, which is 8 months away, and going to the first and third Thursday of the month where we do the workshop at 5:30, but then we do the regular town board meeting at 7 o'clock. Now the people that come to the workshop and listen to a couple presentations and who don't like the fact that they can't get on the podium, well, stick around at 7 o'clock, you can get on the podium. I don't think that this would change our ability to govern, because for the most part, we've come under criticism for this too, we're doing resolutions at times at workshops, where workshops are really not meant to do resolutions. But when you really go back, and I looked at some of the data earlier today, you'd be surprised from about 400 resolutions we did in 2023, I think we did 6 at workshops. So I think there's this feeling we do a lot at workshop, we don't. So we get our business done on the first and third Thursday of the month, and that would not change in that schematic. So it was just a starting point. Wanted to show, and Bridget and Kim showed what other town format meetings or their town board meetings and workshops are. And I just thought it might be interesting to, there's no right answer. And it's not something I'm proposing as, this is just a framework of something. This is not cast in stone. Just thought it might be interesting for the board members to banter around thoughts. And pros and cons of the current structure, pros and cons of the potential 2025 structure, and then any next steps, if you want to call it that, if it's got momentum. I'm off my soapbox.
I'm looking at the comparison of other towns, and quite frankly, I'm surprised at how infrequently some of them meet.
We were too.
I had no idea that a town board could meet just once a month.
We were
I
too.
thought there was more business to
Especially
do.
given the size of
Yeah.
some of these towns.
And how few of them actually hold workshops. It's very interesting. I think your proposal has merit.
Oh, yeah.
But not even your proposal, but your suggestion.
Yeah, and Patty, I'll tell you what, I mean, 5:30, 7:56, 7:30,
So
I'm, just a framework.
so say we have a 5:30 workshop, there's one item on the agenda. We're not gonna wait till 7, we're just gonna roll right into
No, we
the town
can't.
board meeting, correct?
Really?
We cannot, and this is one of there's the pros and cons. A con of the potential 2025 structure as it is written right there is that first of all, there might be no workshop. We do have,
Right.
there's 24 possible workshops a year. I didn't go and do this data. I know 2019 and prior workshops happen about 14, 15 times a year out of 24 possible dates. We have been heavy on workshops the last couple of years. We also have been dealing with a lot of activity. So we've had a lot of workshops. But even in April, I think the April 11th one, we didn't do a workshop. If there's not a presentation, we don't do them.
I think there was at least 2 that I can recall.
Already this month, or this year?
No. In the last 12 months.
Right.
Let's just say.
So it's funny, if there's no workshop, there's no workshop, and the town board meeting would start in this schematic 7. But you bring up a good point, is that, Patty, I think you're right, and Jeff, you can't start a formal town board meeting with resolutions prior to the time
Correct, yeah.
that you're supposed to start. So does that, does that mean that you governor, which I think would be a bad idea, you move the starting times of the regular town board meeting depending upon how many
Well,
topics there are?
or potentially start the workshops at 6 versus
Yes.
5:30.
Exactly.
What you're suggesting is if there's one item, you
Right.
just push the workshop, these
Well,
workshops.
yeah, I would say that
Right.
just start the workshops at 6.
Well, let me put it this way, and I love my data, and Kim and Bridget help. I have folders of the last couple of years where I keep notes of the agendas. I have when they started, when they ended. I didn't prepare, I was kind of busy the last couple of days, to go and show what has been the average time of a
Well, that'd be
workshop.
interesting, that'd be
You know,
good
because-
information to know.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
think that would help, and that's why, we're 8 months away from this. I'm not
Oh, no, no.
proposing we change this
Right.
tomorrow. And let me put the 800-pound gorilla out there. For a town board, an attorney and Josh and the people that have to come to this that work for the town, it's very appetizing to go from 4 Thursday nights a month down to 2.
Sure.
It was very appetizing to the planning board and the zoning board. You were on the planning board when that happened. That didn't mean that your workload went down.
Right.
It didn't. But it did create I think there were some efficiencies that created, both on the board members and the town employees, but also as we educated Josh, the applicants. That, you know, there was an urgency, like, you don't have one in 2 weeks, you need to get this in. And we haven't gotten any negative kickback on that I've heard. I can't really envision the unintended consequences, good, bad, whatever, of going to something like this. That's why I wanted to broach it tonight, so you might think of something in 2 weeks. Hey, you know, here's something we didn't think about for change. Okay.
Councilman Cahill surprised me because I was sure that he was going for a dinner break in between those two meetings.
Well, you know.
No, she just planted the seed.
I think
Guess who's bringing snacks?
I think it's best if we can move up the time, you know, and make it more consideration. And I think it's, so just in case if people want to talk or anything like that, and we can get out on time, that's a, you know.
You know,
I'd be interested in this, in the stats as far as the average length of the workshops to see if we can, you know, instead of 5:30, move it up to 6, if possible.
And see, now this is a good discussion, because, I mean, you could do 6:30 workshop, which, once again, I've gotten some feedback from citizens that they don't like workshops because they don't get to talk. I also have heard that they don't like workshops because nobody can get out of work by 5:30 to come to them.
And I empathize with this.
So 6:30 workshop, 7:30, the same time as the town board meeting. Contrary to popular belief, if I give you the time, the average times of a workshop, but I'll give you the average times of a town board meeting, they're not as long as you think. They go longer when we go into executive session at the end. You know, I mean, it does make for the town board members that, this is kind of overly simplified, you come in 4 Thursdays a month for an hour, or you come in 2 Thursdays a month for 2 hours. I think you're gonna get the same amount of time invested, but I don't know. I mean, I see something very appetizing about only twice a month and doing it for 2 hours and 4 times a month for 1 hour.
Oh, it's
Well, and-
I think it's more efficient. And my question is, if there's something magical about starting the board meetings at 7:30? Because I've been a proponent, or I would love to see them start at 7, because the planning board meetings start at 7, the zoning board meetings, the other meetings start at 7. So just for consistency, starting at 7 would be nice, and then there's an opportunity to get out a little earlier. So moving that up would be good. It would be helpful to see the stats of a workshop, how long they are. Because, I mean, if a workshop is 30 minutes, I don't know, then you just have extra, like, non-productive time waiting for the other meeting to start. That would be my only thing. And I don't know, Charlie, from like a legal perspective, if one meeting ends and then you have that break time, and now there's no official meeting, are we in here, and do we have a quorum?
Well, I think you're okay, because it's only you don't make any decisions.
Okay.
I find this interesting too, because apparently, I mean, I'm looking at like Greece, which is
Isn't that amazing?
as big as
Yeah.
a small city, or maybe not as small, maybe a medium-sized city, they only have 1 meeting a month, no workshop.
Yeah, I work with a couple of people who are on town boards for Rush and Wheatland, and talked to folks in Arundecoit who were very surprised that we met 4 times a month. And I just said, I don't know any different, that's all I'm familiar with.
I usually get the same reaction. People are incredulous that we meet 4 times a month.
Well, I just, like, I think it should be better around 6 or 6:30 instead of 7, it's too late. You know, and
For what,
Consideration
board meeting or
for-
workshop?
for the board meeting.
Workshop start? Or course?
Well, I think, well, by looking at this in Penfield, they meet only twice and look like they have an efficient, have good friends in there, and they don't have to meet like 4 times like we do, but they meet around 6:30, 6 o'clock. So I think that's, that when we move up the time, you could have more agenda and everything to talk, and then people can come in and give them, their opinion, and speak on the floor, and we can get out on time.
The only problem with that is if we were to move the town board meeting up to that early time, then that bumps the workshop up to an extremely early time where many people wouldn't be able to attend the workshop.
Or we can do like they do, we just do one workshop and then one town board, and then just have, spread out like that. It's convenient too, and this way we don't have to sit and see if, there's a gap between. Try to make it more efficient.
I do like the idea of not having a gap between meetings. There seems to be a lot of things going on in Webster, so to have just one planning board a month and one workshop a month.
But we move up the time, so it's gonna make it longer. It's not like we just, we have more agendas to be in one day instead of spread it out in 2, 3 days. Twice a month.
Well,
So
if we move it up, there's a certain amount of people that will not be able to A, attend, or B, watch the town board meetings, because they're getting home from work, sitting down and eating dinner, and that will be while we are having a board meeting. So I don't know.
I also think that we might be making too much of the gap in between the 2 meetings, because most of us, I was the exception tonight, I came in on 2 wheels because I was in a town meeting until close to 5 o'clock and had to scoot home. Most of us get here 15 minutes before the meeting starts.
Well, the 5:30 meetings, and I'm being selfish to point this out, sometimes it's very difficult for me to get out of work
Sure.
in time to get here for the 5:30 meeting. And because, we start at 6:30, and there's a lot of times I'm still at work until late, so it's difficult.
I used to experience the same thing when I was working. I used to slide into meetings in my scrubs
Yeah.
because I could barely get here by
Right.
5:30.
Which is why it'll be very interesting to see the duration of the workshops. Because if we could move the starting from 5:30 to 6 o'clock, I think that would be beneficial. And that would cut down on the gap between the workshop and the town board meeting. But fundamentally, I like the idea of coming in twice. The other thing that I'm a proponent of with respect to this suggestion is that it will give people the opportunity to watch the workshop, and we may be presenting something that they want to talk about during the board meeting. So it gives the public an opportunity to comment, right, to your point, which is a great thing, because we want to give the public as many opportunities to speak as possible, and by doing it in this manner, I think it'd be very beneficial to the public.
I like the idea of starting at 6 o'clock as well, because 5:30 is sometimes difficult for me
Yeah.
to get here, considering I work all the way in Henrietta.
So that's where our office is too.
But you're all over, you can be all over the place.
Yeah, if I got, projects in Hilton, over in New York, so, yeah.
I think we could take a more critical look at this once we get those statistics on the average time of workshops. Although when I think about it, usually have more than 4 items on those agendas.
Well, that,
Just as a quick look back, and we allow 15 minutes per item. It would force us to curtail some of the additional discussion that's not really necessary sometimes. It would cause us to stay on target,
I think the word that comes to mind with me is the word pithy.
yeah, well, yeah. I think if you go back and, I know where this is being pointed, by the way, and use charge, but workshops are not where my verbosity causes extensions of time. Honestly, they are not. It's the regular town board meetings. The workshops, I hand the town out to the presenter, and then it is what it is. But if I get the stats of the last 2023 and year-to-date 2024, recent, the most recent, whatever, about 16, 17 months of board meetings and also workshops. And I'll get them back to the town board within the next couple of weeks, and maybe we can reconvene on this. I am saying, well, first of all, I know at the org meeting we said this is what we set up as a resolution. We have our regular board meetings on the first and third Thursday, and I can't remember if we say workshops and that. Charlie, I would say,
believe you do.
I said at the beginning of 25, but if there is momentum on this thing, we have a lot more flexibility on workshops. We cancel workshops. We don't have workshops. Town board meetings with resolutions, that's a little different. I think we got to stick to what,
It's a schedule that's set at your organizational meeting, so
Yeah.
you're effectively legislated.
Right.
Yeah.
So those are 7:30, the first and third Thursday of the month. That's a fact. And I don't know if we really should screw around with that mid-year.
It's not a good idea.
But I don't know if we have any flexibility to say, hey, we've decided that we're moving workshops to 6 o'clock first and third Thursday for the remainder of the year, starting in October or whatever. It'd be interesting to know. Because,
Well, you
you know,
pointed out, it really, workshops are optional.
They really are. But I'll get those stats. Because the one thing I gleaned from what is, hey, this is a good, this is 23 minutes we talked about this.
I have one quick question,
Shoot away.
just a procedural question. Can you amend the organizational meeting? Like, would it be unrealistic to make an amendment to the organizational meeting, just hypothetically,
You just do another.
and say that the meetings are gonna start at 7 instead of 7:30? If we wanted to make that change as well this year.
I think you could
And the reason I laid this out as a potential for 2025 is, well, we got 7.5 months left this year. I don't know, I didn't know if I'd come to this and you guys would all be like, that's the worst idea I've ever heard, and I'd be like, okay, well, but it looks as though, and I'm not surprised because we had that, Josh, almost immediately with the planning board and the zoning board. I think almost immediately when you presented, first thing I know is that when you showed comparables, there was some incredulous from the planning board and zoning board, wow, they only meet, just like you guys said, wow, I can't believe Greece only meets once a month. I find that's amazing myself, that that's the only time they meet. I've heard some other things that if they have 20 agenda items, they do what do they do, Josh?
They do like a blanket
A
approval.
blanket,
Yeah.
and it's over in 5 minutes. I am not suggesting that.
No,
No.
no.
You're gonna get some pushback.
No, I would never
More than
suggest,
that.
and to be honest with you, that's where I get verbose, John, is that making sure a department head or somebody explains what we're
Right.
voting on individually, I think is a real value to people in the audience, watching live or watching the tape. Because on the surface, you look at a resolution, you're like, I don't know what the heck that means. But if somebody gives that 2-minute explanation, whether it's Paul Adams, whether it's Josh, whether it's whatever, I just think the layman at home appreciates, oh, okay, that's what that means. So,
Well, speaking
blanket resolution would be awful.
speaking of the layman,
The workshops, I think, are very valuable because you have all the board members here in public as a quorum, so it's an open meeting, but yet you're able to discuss things as a group, which you
right.
normally would not be doing
Right.
otherwise.
Yeah.
It's-
Well, it'd be interesting to receive some feedback from the public regarding our discussion tonight.
Geez, Bridget, I wonder if you will get anything on Facebook or whatever as people watch this live, or,
be
What
very
the heck, Dave, what do you got? What do you think? Thumbs up,
Well-
thumbs down?
I don't understand why you need the workshops at all.
Well, there you go. Unfortunately, we're not gonna get into that, but, and it's funny, we use the workshops, as kind of like, hey, let's present and explain something and get some town board questions, whatever. And then the next week at a regular board meeting, we might be doing the resolution of it. It's a nice, lead-in to a resolution. Whether we would go to this schematic and say, hey, we did a workshop at 6 o'clock and did a presentation and they're doing the resolution at 7,
I don't think
we'd have to look pretty
well.
close at, what are we trying to shoehorn in?
Right.
The same way we have had this discussion about, do you do a public hearing and then a minute later vote on the resolution, and that's a,
It's not well
optic-wise,
received.
you'd rather
let's put it
wait
that
a
way.
couple weeks, so, whatever. There is no hard, fast, true way to do all this, but,
No,
I'm gonna get the
interesting to
stats,
get
and
the
we'll
stats.
see what kind of, for anybody watching, who watched this, by all means, call, email, Facebook, comment, I don't know if you can, an old guy, I don't know how YouTube works, I don't think YouTube has an
You can
interaction.
comment, you can comment.
Can you?
Yes.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I gotta go on YouTube. All right, well, listen, anything else?
Good discussion.
I was a little on the back with Jen.
Well, I'm gonna keep talking, it's not over yet, I have something. I have something, so that you might lose your bet, I don't know.
We didn't.
That is one thing that I have found very peculiar, being the newest member on the board, that there isn't a lot of discussion. Like, and you can't have discussions outside of the board meetings, right? So it's,
Or you can't just not support.
right,
Right.
well, right, so like something like this comes onto an agenda, and it's like, I didn't feel like I can ask any questions about it. So like the first time we're talking about it is right here, being the change of the meeting times. I don't know what else. I guess, I guess the other thing that was difficult for me, just speaking about it, was the issue with the traffic stop. The traffic stop incident, and not having a whole lot of details either coming into this meeting, where I know Patty, you was the liaison to the police, and Tom, you overseeing the whole town. There was a lot more information about that both of you had, that we didn't have coming into the meeting. So for some of us, I don't know, for me or for John or for Ginny, we're just kind of coming in and hearing everything for the first time with everybody else. And I don't know that that's, it just seemed a little awkward.
I think a little piece of advice, if nothing else, similar to, we always joke about the advice that the chairman of the planning board gave you when you were new on that board,
Yeah.
which was, what was his advice to you?
His advice was to take the cotton out of my ears and put it in my mouth.
Exactly. I learned early on and for years, and of course it was a different administration, but if you don't ask, you won't find out. So I would encourage anyone who isn't a liaison to any department, that if you're concerned with what's going on in those departments and you want to know before we get to the meeting, or even if it's not on the agenda, it's just something that's going to come up, by all means, reach out and ask questions. And I do know the chief has agreed to,
Yes.
both you and Councilman Cahill have been meeting with him. And our department heads are more than gracious and happy to, because it's in their best interest to have an informed board, and they really do appreciate that.
I did go to the
Yes.
sewer, I did the sewer tour, and I'm very much looking forward to meeting with Chief Holmeyer and understanding more about the police protocol and the discretion and how they're trained,
won't be here
because I feel that will make me a more informed board member,
It certainly will.
and then being able to address questions that you just get out in the public or at work or wherever, whatever. Yeah, that, I'm not sure I'm explaining it right, but that is one piece that is, okay, I'm still feeling my way through.
I think, Patty, excellent advice. And I don't want to put Patty on the spot.
But
No, I gotta think how to word this. Just because people use some buzzwords around social media, whatever, like transparency and things like that. I think this administration, not just me, but everybody, has really tried to commit the last 4.5 years to uber communication about things, relative to maybe how it was done before. But since you're coming in with no point of reference, it's easy to understand why you would have the feelings that you just referenced, okay? Certain weekly communications that I try to get to the town board, I don't think that was a thing in years past, Patty
It
and
was
John, but you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And the one thing, now that we're talking about this, it's, why not? I'll put a ribbon on this. When that situation happened with the police incident, okay, which you're talking about, I know that Patty being the liaison of the police, and myself were in 2 to 4 meetings a day with communication, with various people, because it was an evolving situation. And it had sensitivities beyond me. I failed because I left the rest of the town board members with no communication from me for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday leading up to last Thursday's town board meeting. And 96 hours of no communication is going to make people fester and have their minds filled with all sorts of things, especially when they are just watching the news and watching body cam and not getting any communication from me. I failed on that. And that, if I had it to do over again, because I did communicate with you guys on Saturday, and I did communicate with you guys on Sunday, and then once I got in on Monday, and Patty and I were in more meetings than you could take a stick at, I did not put out communication, phone, email, whatever, to the 4 board members. And it's very natural that you guys are getting hit by every bit of information on the news, all that stuff. It's natural to do for that, so.
Well, I appreciate you listening to my questions and my concerns and taking action in setting up the time with Chief Kohlmeyer to help fill that void
Yeah.
for me, and I know John's gonna
Right.
take you up on that offer as well.
Contrary to some, certain people, we're transparent. I hate the term because I think it's overused lately. We got nothing to hide. Amazingly enough, I think we have such an immense amount of information that is coming our way all the time. And I'll say as the supervisor, I can't believe 4.5 years in that every single day, this is not an exaggeration, 1, 2, 3 new things I find out about our organization or our town. How can I still have that kind of newness coming at me? Shouldn't I know it all by now? And then I got to parse through and say, well, how much of this do I throw at the other 4 town board members? I could be sending you guys updates on the hour. I don't think you'd like that. So it's a challenge. When is there too much information coming at you? When is there not enough information? When is the porridge just right? And communication is an art, right, Bridget?
Yes.
And it is never something that I'm going to perfect. I'm a student of it, but we are trying to get better. And I learned a big lesson last week that I don't even know if we'll ever get something like that again. But if I'm in the trenches with the liaison for some department, I'll make sure that the other 3 board members are kept apprised daily or whatever. There are certain situations that need daily updates. The last one that we had here, and when COVID hit on March 13th or whatever it was, 2020, and I'm 2.5 months into being supervisor, so who am I? What am I? But I'd seen this before. I'd seen crises when I owned a mortgage company in 08 and the world went to hell in a handbasket. And I got the town department heads in this room, socially distanced, daily, because they needed daily communication because the rules of engagement in that crisis were changing daily. And I think we allowed the town board members to be on the phone for those things. Is that correct, Patty and John? Josh, I think you were here for that?
Yeah.
That's what you gotta do. You gotta communicate hourly, daily, when that's happening, because, and now, I would've lost the bet, but when things like that are happening, not to be overly philosophical, the 5 stages of grief. Change nobody likes. You need time as a human being for your brain to absorb the change and accept it. When things are changing every day, you didn't get time to absorb what changed yesterday. And now you're coming into the meeting and finding out, hey, you know how the governor said that we're only going to have 25% of non-essential people go home? Well, today it's 50. Hey, you remember yesterday when they said 50%? Well, today it's 75.
And ironically,
Right?
both he and Chris are now walking all that stuff back.
Just saying.
Go
The
figure.
rules of engagement are changing by the hour. And when that happens, which had happened in 08 to my business, I learned through that, you need to over-communicate, get your lieutenants into the room, maybe hourly, twice a day, once a day, because things are changing and you gotta be on top of it. We did that with the situation, Patty, myself, and other people. The mistake I made is that there were other people like you and the other 2 board members that should have been made aware of certain things. When it wasn't, you came in here on Thursday, we had a bunch of speakers on Thursday, the perfect storm.